Ambassador Sikri, the Canadian media has also been reporting that Trudeau has evidence which will be produced in courts of law at an appropriate time. So is Trudeau actually trying to dial down tension, or would this be seen as a tactical retreat?
No, I don't think there's a retreat of any kind. Our External Affairs Minister, when he was in the USA and had very high-level meetings there, he'd made it very clear that anything that we have received so far from the Canadian government is neither specific nor relevant. So clearly, there is absolutely no evidence of any kind that has been given to the government of India that is either specific or relevant. We have also said, our External Affairs Minister said, that we are prepared to discuss if any concrete evidence, specific evidence, instead of just allegations, are provided to the Indian side. We are prepared to look into it and talk to the Canadian government about it. I would like to say very clearly that the withdrawal of the indication that 41 Canadian diplomats are going to be withdrawn is just a very logical follow-through of what was conveyed by the Indian government to the Canadian side many weeks ago. And I think the government has followed up on it because Canadian government did not take action. Now the Indian side has named the diplomats who are to be withdrawn. So I think there's no choice in this matter now, but they would have to be withdrawn. The Canadian government has a very big presence in India. They have trade offices in Kolkata, Ahmedabad, Chennai, and Hyderabad, and they have consulates and embassies in New Delhi and Bengaluru and Chandigarh and Mumbai. So obviously, India, on the other hand, has presence just in Ottawa, Toronto, and Vancouver. So the parity that is being asked for is fairly logical. It's quite normal in diplomatic practice to have a parity. The number of consulates on each side is normally on parity. And I do think that the question that should seriously worry all Canadian citizens is that why is this whole issue of the Canadian citizens making secessionist statements against India? Why is this being allowed on Canadian soil?
Why does Canada stand with terror is the question that I actually want to put to all Canadians. And Valina Chekharova, External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar was very clear that there's a climate of violence, there's an atmosphere of intimidation that Indian diplomats and Indian citizens face in Canada. Canada has done nothing to address that. Where do Five Eyes intelligence partners stand on this in your appreciation? Because the view from India is, whether it's the US or Canada, are they actually standing with the terrorist like Hardeep Singh Nijjar and taking on India for a terrorist?
Well, here is my view. Once again, I think that you need to take a look at the political climate in Canada right now, and that will deliver the answer to your question. And that is that, in my view, nothing is going to happen, very little is going to happen following this actually incident in terms of any concrete measures or actions by the Canadian government. And here is my explanation. In 2023, there are already 15 Sikh MPs constituting more than 4% of the House of Commons. And as we know, actually, the leader of the New Democratic Party, this is the de facto coalition partner of the minority Liberal government, which is now led by the Prime Minister Trudeau, is also a Sikh. This is Jagmeet Singh. And he's, by the way, one of those very strong voices right now as we speak and try to make sense of the whole diplomatic role, who actually suggested officially that India is also introduced into this investigation that I pointed to, an investigation that is going to continue at least for the next 16 to 18 months, and will investigate interference of foreign countries into Canadian election systems and Canadian election processes. So you understand that the political component is very strong ahead of elections, because we know for a fact that Canada will have elections in 2025, if not earlier, because the domestic situation is also quite fragile at the moment. Now, PM Trudeau is trying to avert the attention away from more serious domestic problems when it comes to the, skyrocketing costs, but he's also, in my view, trying to somehow accommodate his most important political partner ahead of the elections. And this is why I think that these allegations will probably remain at the level of allegations, because I don't expect from a geopolitical point of view that any of the five ICE partners, including the United States, will really have a strong interest in aggravating India right now, because all of them are currently interlinked with India on various formats and platforms.
Okay, Daniel, reports in Canada seem to indicate that Canada has what is being described in the Canadian media as bombshell evidence in the form of communications between diplomats, which will be produced or may be produced in courts of law. Now, is Trudeau adopting a tough line to shore up numbers ahead of elections and not cede any territory to Jagmeet Singh, who sees himself as future Prime Minister of Canada?
No, that's not exactly how the electorate would work. And within like the Canadian left, matters of geopolitical security aren't really front of mind. I mean, my colleague here gave a pretty good synopsis of Canada and Trudeau and our incredibly soft on terrorism approach and all types of terrorism, not just Khalistanis. Justin Trudeau is a man who, when criticized for bringing back literal ISIS fighters into Canada, screamed Islamophobia and said ISIS fighters will be a powerful voice for de-radicalization. So our Islamist de-radicalization program was going to be headed up by ISIS fighters. This is Trudeau logic. So if we have bombshell communications, if we have the Indian government bragging, hey, we did it here, yeah, that might cause a diplomatic row, and we have to sort of protect our sovereignty and all that. But in the reality of geopolitics, are other countries, like outside India and Canada, are other countries and people really going to rally to the guy who's on video supporting suicide bombings, on video praising the KLF and putting up posters of terrorists, on video threatening Hindus and Indian diplomats? Like, it's all on video. None of the video makes it into Canadian media, but the rest of the world will see it. And it's hard to really go to war with a geopolitical power like India over Hardeep Singh Nijjar.
Over a terrorist. In fact, that's the point. Ambassador Sikri, I have the last 30 seconds on this part of the show. But seriously, Canada or the United States or some leadership in the United States, they want to take on India defending a terrorist like Hardeep Nijjar? That sounds quite bizarre.
Absolutely bizarre. You're absolutely right. And I think that, again, External Affairs Minister Jaishankar's talks in USA, Washington, D.C. have set the record straight on that one. So I think there's no misunderstanding between India and USA on that one, because India is absolutely and perfectly, unequivocally clear that we will not tolerate such anti-Indian statements by, in the name of local politics of Canada. Please do your local politics. I mean, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau is entitled to do his local politics, but not at the cost of India. I think that should be very clear, and any person who tries to do politics in Canada at the cost of India will only get his fingers burnt, and that is what is happening right now. Because I don't think you can preach secessionism in another country and call it politics in your country. I think that time is gone. That time absolutely does not exist.
And just preaching secessionism is one part of the story. To be on an Interpol red corner notice, to have to wield AK-47s, to be involved in terror, to be wanted for terror, any civilized rule-based order, any democracy would be expected to hand over people like Nijjar to face due process of law instead of being defended and then claim to be a democracy.